welcome once again to Sid Caudle. Sid, it's not a very nice time for UK, it's not a very nice time for the world, but it's been coming for many decades. People could see this on the horizon, and they've done a Chamberlain for years and thought of appeasement. But it's happened, hasn't it, now with Iran?
Yes, and you see, what you need is politicians with conviction. And Trump is certainly a politician who has conviction and he doesn't mess about. And before we talk about Iran, one thing I would like to say is that I find it absolutely phenomenal what Trump has achieved in Venezuela because when he went in there and took out Maduro, without actually any American servicemen whatsoever being killed. And they found that Maduro was surrounded by Cubans. And the left was saying, oh, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful, it's undemocratic, and so on and so forth. And it won't actually achieve anything. But we now have a situation where the Venezuelan parliament, for the first time since Chavez came to power, has passed a law saying that private oil companies can take over the oil production in Venezuela. They've also passed a law to say that all political prisoners must be freed. And it looks as though fairly soon we'll have free and fair elections in Venezuela. America is now taking 80 million barrels of oil from Venezuela already. And it looks as though the shortage of oil, which may be coming from this from this attack in Iran, will probably be met from oil coming from Venezuela. So that will mean that the effect on the international oil price will be significantly less than it would have been otherwise. But, to me, Venezuelans were suffering terribly under the communist regime with over 1,000% inflation. The health service collapsed, no food in the shops that was purchasable. I mean, they were actually saying that a reasonable grocery shop will be cost now in the region of £450 to do one shop in the supermarkets in Venezuela. That's the extent to which inflation had gone up and made food almost impossible to purchase, if it was available at all. Even the extent to which that some people were so hungry, they were literally going out and killing animals in the fields in order to get something to eat. That was what happened with communism under Venezuela. And that's what Trump has brought to an end and brought real hope to the people of that country. And it's shown, frankly, what somebody with conviction, with real moral convictions, and saying this is unacceptable what that nation is doing, and I'm going to bring it to an end, what he is able to achieve.
It's fascinating, the spin-off in all this, and it's starting working day to day at the moment. But you did mention our great leader, Keir Starmer. If anybody couldn't see what was happening, see through Starmer after his last broadcast last night, which was made through Sid, clenched teeth. Oh, we don't want to attack you, but we're defending our own rights, and we may help to limited extent the US with our bases. I mean, it was disgraceful.
Yes.
This man is pro-Iran, and his left wing are. He's anti-Christian. And I repeat, if people can't see through it now, it'll never happen.
Yeah, Starmer's position has been complete nonsense. I mean, he announced that he accepts that the Iranian regime is one of the most evil regimes in the world. But he's not allowing America to use British bases either in the UK or in British islands in order to bomb Iran. And he's made it clear to everyone, we are not supporting this bombing. He's even suggested it is against international law, which is basically what the United Nations has said. The United Nations has said, oh, it's terrible, it's against international law. People should know, by the way, that there is no body of international law. International law is largely the opinions of a lot of left-wing lawyers. It's nothing else. But it's interesting, isn't it, that it wasn't against international law when the Iranian regime was killing demonstrators demonstrating in the streets. About 40,000, I reckon, at least, demonstrators just killed just simply for demonstrating, unarmed demonstrators in the streets in Iran. And that wasn't against international law. International law was quite happy with that. I mean, it just shows the nonsense, the utter nonsense of international law. But Starmer's position is just mad. So he says that he doesn't support the regime, that he doesn't support America, but he's sending RAF bombers, apparently, or RAF fighters, to protect British interests in the region, which presumably means Cyprus, because the Iranians have attacked Cyprus, and we haven't got the defence there. And you see, it's quite interesting. We've been saying for 10 years now that we need missile defence in Britain, and in Britain, protected countries. See, Israel's got missile defence, so they're able to shoot down Iranian missiles that are coming to Israel. A few of them are getting through, but the vast majority are being shot down. We've got no missile defence at all in Cyprus. So any Iranian missiles that are sent to Cyprus, to the British base there, or any British bases anywhere, aren't protected. The only thing that the ships have got is laser protection. Laser protection is good. So that is some protection for the ships, but it's not protection for the countries. They just haven't got it.
The other fascinating thing on this spin-off we've mentioned, Sid, is China, because China suddenly lost all its oil. Venezuela's gone, getting nothing from them. Straits of Hormuz are now closed, and that's the channel that they got their oil from to all the Far East, in actual fact. They've lost that. Everywhere that they get their oil from has been closed. Xi Jinping is furious. He, of course, blames Trump for all this.
Yes, it's interesting because China obviously is very much affected by what's going on. Putin is also affected, but it seems as though Trump has managed to keep Putin sufficiently on side. China will be livid, but what are they going to do? That's the key thing. I mean, maybe that China will use this opportunity to invade Taiwan, because America is occupied with Iran and also with other things in the world. They will hope that the Americans will say, oh, we can't be involved in another war, so they'll get away with it. That's maybe what China will do. I don't know. But yes, China are furious, and we'll have to wait to see how they react, or if they react. But I'm very pleased that we're not resisting trying to bring about regime change in Iran, which is very much needed, absolutely very much needed, because of the oil. But there are other sources of oil. And of course, I mean, the US itself is now producing far more oil. Under Biden, the United States was resisting producing oil because they were saying, oh, we've got to get rid of fossil fuels. So they were reducing their oil production. Trump's policy for the last year has been drill, baby, drill, and increase the amount of oil America's producing. They're now self-sufficient again, and they're also exporting. So, you know, it's to take America, take Venezuela, you've actually got, you know, alternatives that are greatly increasing their production. You've actually got alternative sources of oil now, which you didn't have before. And it's also interesting, by the way, that Iran has attacked UAE and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these countries as well. And they're, of course, major producers of oil. But they may well ramp up their production because of what Iran is doing. So in order to frustrate the Iranian efforts, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the other thing that's coming out of this, strangely, is that, and they've done this for the last 2 or 3 years, China, they've seen a little bit of a green light, dare I say, and have been planting solar panels and windmills throughout China, because they've not got the greatest blessing of oil. They've got a lot of blessings with coal, but they've actually set the year 2060 for net zero. I mean, that's only to keep the international brigade a bit quieter, but even they are being affected by this. So maybe some good is coming out of the dark days, Sid. Trump is talking now of being ahead of the game, ahead of the timetable. And he said it's going to take a month to sort this lot out. I hope he's right.
Well, it's interesting that I was reading that Israel has been doing a lot of this bombing, by the way. We're sort of saying it's all Trump, but it's not all Trump. It's Trump and Israel together. But Israel has been bombing the IRGC and the structure that is used to kill the demonstrators and all the organizations that are used to kill the demonstrators. Those have been in the eyes of the Israeli Air Force. And in the past, all they've done is to attack the Iranian army. But they're not just attacking the Iranian army now, they're also attacking the whole terror apparatus in Iraq. And hopefully, if they can really weaken and break the structure of that terror apparatus, that's what will bring down the regime. Because the people are demonstrating in the streets, thrilled with what's happening. I mean, I've also seen pictures of demonstrators inside Iran tearing down statues of Khamenei, now he's dead, and celebrating his death. Now, you see, what was happened in the past is when that happens, the IRGC come along, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, they come along and start just killing all the demonstrators. But if all their headquarters are being bombed and they're all being killed, it may be much harder for them to do that. So if the demonstrators can have free reign in the streets and hopefully take over the media, and then they can actually topple the apparatus. And I hope it will happen very quickly. I hope and pray it will happen very quickly.
Yeah, hope and pray is good during difficult times, especially during the war times. Maybe this might enlighten people of where we're going, because this may sound a bit harsh, but don't forget, everyone, the basis of this is Islam and where it's driven a country. And Islam, if you wish, is the real spiritual enemy in all this, Sid.
Well, yes, absolutely. But one interesting thing about Islam is that the Quran says that nothing happens that is not according to the will of Allah. Predestination is very clear in the Quran. Everything is decided by Allah. So if everything is decided by Allah, then presumably Allah wanted Khamenei to be killed. Allah wanted the Americans to attack Iran. I mean, that basically means that the whole Islamic religion doesn't make sense. That's the reality of it, as well as the whole history of Islam now having been destroyed by J. Smith and other people with him, who have basically shown that there was actually nobody called Muhammad at all until writings that appeared very much later. All the ancient inscriptions refer to a prophet who was Jesus. And we know the oldest coins refer to Jesus. The roots of Islam are a non-Trinitarian Christianity. It's always been very, very clear that God is one. There is not, don't say three. They've always been very clear that they've always been very strongly against the Trinity. That's very clear right in the roots of Islam. But Muhammad means the praised one. And the praised one, who was the prophet, was originally Jesus, who they said was a prophet and not the Son of God. And it's quite interesting. They actually now believe that all these stories about Muhammad having sex with a 9-year-old girl, which has been used in Islam, may have been invented by the Ottomans as late as the 15th century, because they wanted to have sex with children. So they invented somebody called Muhammad who had sex with children, who was their leader, so that they could do it. But, that's now coming to light. And the reasons why the Muslims can't disprove that idea is because they have no documents whatsoever referring to somebody called Muhammad before the 15th century, which is now coming to light for the first time.
Very interesting. Still in this subject a little bit, I suppose. We go back to the by-election of Gorton and Denton, but it's been bizarre, that election. It was before it started. There is a big difference between Gorton and Denton. Now, do people that in Gorton voted for the Greens, supported by Islam, do they realise, because they certainly did in Denton, because if you'd have put that into two constituencies in Denton, they'd have certainly voted for Farage with a big majority. But reverting back, and it's fascinating to look at this, you've got the left wing, really the left wing. But do people realise what's going on? Two things, of course, that have been highlighted in here, and Farage has come out and said this, of course: stop family voting and stop postal voting. It leads to corruption, and there was a lot of corruption in that voting. It might not have changed the actual result. It certainly would have made a vast difference to where eventually the parties finished. It would have been really touch and go.
Well, yes, I mean, the Muslims made it clear before the election started that they were supporting the Green candidate. And they are very good at block voting. There's no question about that. And that is to their credit that they're good at block voting, at getting all the Muslims to vote for the same party. They also don't believe in democracy. I mean, if you see, they don't believe in free and fair elections. So they've got no problem whatsoever in cheating the system according to the religion. I mean, they don't think it's against their religion to cheat. I mean, it's actually very much part of their religion to, if you gain advantage, you cheat. That's very much part of a good thing in Islam. So people need to understand that too. As far as the actual technicalities are concerned, I remember the time when postal voting was only allowed if you had a sick note from the doctor, and the doctor had to sign a note to say that you needed to vote by post. And if that's the situation, if we go back to that situation, I think that will be a good thing. When we then went to, oh no, doctors don't need to sign anything. If you want a postal vote, you can just apply for one. Anyone can have one. That is what was then very much open to corruption. I don't think we should get rid of postal voting altogether. But if we went back to a situation where somebody sick or disabled had to have a doctor's note to get a postal vote, I think that would certainly get rid of a lot of cheating in elections, no question.
Seems to have been put on the back burner, said all this, hasn't it? I know the police have been, again, Farage has tipped off the police. They're investigating, but I've not got much confidence in that.
Well, it was a big majority. I mean, you're talking about a majority of, I believe, around 5,000 votes. So it's going to be very, very difficult for Farage to prove that 5,000 votes were corrupt. I mean, you can normally in these situations, if you carefully investigate well, you might find a couple hundred that were in the wrong box or were done illegally. Very, very difficult to find 5,000 votes done illegally. So I don't think he's going to be successful. But if he can show that postal voting is being abused and develop a policy to say that postal voting will only be to people who've got a signed doctor's note, then I think that could well be a good policy.
Moving on, something that again has been put on that proverbial back burner is this workers' rights bill that, okay, there's been some U-turning there by Starmer, and people think, oh, it's okay, it'll go away. No, it won't, because the meat of the bill is still there. And the meat of the bill makes us in the United Kingdom in the worst Western place on the planet, because even we are taking over France. France has been notorious for this kind of law for protecting the unions. And we're actually even ahead of France now. Nobody will want to come and do business in the United Kingdom, Sid. It is as straightforward as that. When you've got unlimited legal damages available to everyone who goes to a tribunal against an employer, that is great for the lawyers, which is all about Keir Starmer again, but it's terrible for business. Businesses will be pulling out of Britain. No new businesses will be coming to Britain. Do they realise what they're doing?
Well, the answer to that question is no. But of course, all of this has come from Angela Rayner initially, and it was almost complete when she resigned. It was just basically followed through what she planned and put forward. And she's very much your archetypal union official who became a Labour MP. No intellectual background whatsoever. I mean, she was just a high up union official, and as a high up union official, she got nominated to be a Labour MP, and she's come into the as a Labour MP very much following the same idea. You know, I'm here to support the workers, to get rights for the workers, and the more rights we get for the workers, the better. They don't think you actually need to focus on creating wealth, and you actually think about your company. You see, when I was a union official for the Prudential, I used to actually think and talk about, you know, the welfare of the company. And some of the things we used to put forward was, look, I don't know why the Prudential isn't more involved in the EU, because the Prudential did very little business in the EU. They did business in the Far East and in some other countries, but hardly any at all in the EU. And one of the things that we were saying is that there's new opportunities in the EU. The companies should be taking advantage of these opportunities. You know, and we were putting things forward, you know, that are the interest of the company, because we knew that as the company made more profits and produced more wealth, then they have more money to pay us. And, you know, and that's how healthy union officials think. But socialist union officials don't think like that at all. I mean, Scargill, who is probably a name from the past now, but I mean, you know, he was somebody who was quite happy to picket out steel works to stop steel production and basically destroy the whole coal industry in this country. You know, because he wasn't interested in the business, in the company. He just wanted to get more money, less time, bigger pensions for the workers. No interest whatsoever in the actual industry. And you know, he's the worst example of or the best example, I should say, of bad trade unionism. That's the reality of it. And that's basically what Angela Rayner is. And that's what this bill is, frankly, bad trade unionism.
Well, it's the boss of Airbus, and Airbus has produced some good aeroplanes in the last 20 years. He's panicking because basically we need in Europe a new Eurofighter. And of course, it's down mainly to Germany and France and a bit of Italy to provide this. Well, the French and the Germans are saying we need Britain, probably because of avionics and all the electrical bits that go in the airplanes. And they want Britain to come in and be part of it. Well, as long as it doesn't draw us into Europe, I suppose it's a good idea. But being honest, Sid, it's going to be 10 or 20 years, even if they start now. It's just been left defence of Europe. Nothing has been done. The armies throughout Europe, it's not just the UK, have just said, oh, America will pick up the tab. Well, Trump has turned their eyes around there.
Yeah, I mean, but there's nothing wrong with us buying American planes, frankly. I mean, it's probably a lot cheaper to buy American planes than it is to take part in this Eurofighter project. But obviously, British Aerospace are an international company, taking very much the lead in avionics, across the board, and well done to them, well done to them. And it's but what we really need is, as I said before, focus on a missile shield, which Germany is now buying from Israel. And Trump is also focusing, it's one reason he wants Greenland, is to focus on this golden dome, which he wants to put in place so that America is properly protected. And that's the way the world is going in defense. We need to have, that shield so that not only just shooting down planes and missiles, but also shooting down drones that are now part of modern warfare that we need to be able to eliminate. You can't just say, oh, we've got bigger nuclear weapons than you've got. So, those days are over, I'm afraid. We need to be far, far more sophisticated.
Which moves us on to head of Ofcom. Ofcom has been a pain in the proverbial for a long time. Very anti-freedom of speech, and the government have put their finger in the pie as usual. They're looking for a head of Ofcom, and they've got 3 candidates, and everyone's been refused. And who's behind it? Our friend, of course, Lisa Nandy, who is the lefty of all lefties, and is holding a ministerial position of sport and culture. And if you've ever heard Lisa speak, with her clipped vocabulary, puts Tony Blair's clipped vocabulary into shame. You think, golly, where did she learn to speak that way? Probably because of her father being a very, very university-led intellectual. She has proudly boasted that she's got several houses worth over $1 million, and she's risen to the high esteem of being part of the close alignment to Sir Keir in number 10. And these people have real power. She wants a lefty in there. She doesn't want a middle person, or even especially a righty, because that might mean less control for the government, more free speech problems.
Yes. And from my background, as when I was a Conservative councillor in Sheffield, in a very strongly Labour council, and that Labour council controlled all the employments, all the employers that were had leading roles in the council had to be members of the Labour Party. Otherwise, you didn't get a look in. That is what they tend to do. And you see, by doing this, what they're doing is making sure that the head of Ofcom will be a member of the Labour Party, and that position will be there for probably many years to come. And the Labour Party do this. You see, it's interesting, the Conservatives don't do this. And what then happens is, because the Conservatives don't do it, they don't try and make sure that members of the Conservative Party are in key positions of power across the country. So even when the Conservatives in power, the Labour Party is still trying to get their people into the key positions all the time. So that's why it's so very, very hard when the Conservatives take power, or if Reform take power next time, for them to bring about change swiftly, because the Labour Party is still controlling the civil service. So these sorts of positions, like head of Ofcom, are extremely important. And the Labour Party don't care. They don't care in the slightest about whether somebody complains because only members of the Labour Party may apply. They don't care if people complain about that. They just go in and do it. It's part of their culture to do it.
We'll stick with dear old Lisa for a while, because she's part of the debacle in the West Midlands, whereby the police refused the proper policing that they shouldn't have done of that famous match between Aston Villa and
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Well done, Sid. That's the word. And she is behind this lot. It's just come out, just been revealed that she knew exactly what was going on and approved the police refusal. The police, as you remember, relied on AI to find out, oh my goodness me, these Israelis are dangerous. There's 2 incidents when there was only 1, and that nowhere near as severe as they pretended. They would sooner listen to the local Islamic population and their leaders than the truth. Islam is coming into everything, Sid.
Yes. And see, what was really insidious about that was the fact that in the previous match in Holland, the Muslims had created a riot prior to that match and around that match. And all the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans came under attack, and the police had to work very hard to protect them and to protect the team. But what the Islamists tried to pretend was that all the violence was being caused by the Israelis. And what they then pretended in Birmingham was that, oh, we're going to have to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans because these fans are dangerous. Where in fact, it was just a complete and total lie. Total lie. And like you say, the truth was a casualty over what happened. And I'm afraid so often with Islam, truth is the casualty. So that is where we stand, frankly. We stand simply on telling the truth and speaking the truth, and as we do that, things will change. Things have to change, and this is where we come back to Trump. I mean, Trump is so much changing the agenda in the whole world because he has proven that you can stand up to Islam and you can win. And that's what he's proving now in Iran, that you can stand up to Islam and win. And that's what we've got to do. We have to do it. We need a government that's willing to do it, frankly.
And let me mention something that is creeping up on us. Let's get the word out there. There's lots of changes going to be brought about by AI. Now, you've probably heard of the phrase, viewers, of invisible exports, and we've always been very good at this. That includes everything from bankers to lawyers and all sorts of things that we're excellent at. But there's been a warning. There are certain jobs that are going to suffer because of AI. And believe it or not, lawyers particularly, and banking and other industries allied, for instance, accountancy, they're not going to be used anywhere near as much because of AI. For the routine things, for the clever things, yes, it'll still need a good lawyer, a good banker, a good accountant. That's difference to our exports in general.
Yes, and administration. You see, it's quite interesting. I had a meeting with somebody who started to show me the way that she was using AI, and she basically said, "Look, I don't have the ability or the finance to be able to have a massive backroom staff." But with AI, you don't need a backroom staff. And she showed me what AI can do and literally say, please produce a report on such and such and such and such. So a company that will literally have a mass of researchers doing research for them, producing reports. Now AI can literally just do it instantly. So a company can just turn around to AI and say, please produce a report on whatever they want to report on. Please produce some recommendations. And literally in the matter of seconds, AI can produce the report and produce the recommendations. And if they're if it's too wordy, they can say, please produce a simpler report. Please make the recommendations more specific. These are too vague. And literally then AI will rewrite the report again in seconds and produce more specific recommendations. You can say, please reduce the number of recommendations or please increase the number of recommendations. And all this can be done. So suddenly companies don't need lots of researchers, they don't need lots of backman staff, and also small companies that are rising, can rise very, very efficiently and produce goods much more efficiently with the help of AI. So yes, it's absolutely going to transform industry.
Right. Something else coming out of the woodwork is the Bank of England are being urged by leading businessmen and institutions, get your act together quickly. We've got to reduce rates. We've got to reduce the bank rates and inflation, and it needs doing now, not deferring.
Mm. Yes, I mean, you see, but the art in all this is to look forward. You see, it's very, very easy for the Bank of England to look back and say, oh, well, or look at the situation as it is in the present. But the art is to see how the economy is developing, what's likely to be happening over the next year, and to set interest rates according to how the economy is developing. And frankly, the Bank of England haven't been very good at it. They've tended to react much more than they have to anticipate. And the result of that is that we've had low interest rates when they should have been going up, and we've had high interest rates when they should have been a lot lower. But so that they really haven't been doing the job very well, in my opinion.
It's perhaps spread from Mark Carney's time. Once it gets hold, progressive banking said it's difficult to get rid of it, isn't it?
Well, it's not just, well, I mean, what Mark Carney was doing was basically doing everything in support and in conjunction with the EU rather than having proper independent Bank of England. That's what he was doing. But what I'm talking about is basically good finance. Good finance is looking forward, not just looking at the current situation or the past situation, and seeing how things are developing. But you see, the thing is, our inflation rose to 11%, which was actually higher than other Western countries. Other Western countries went up, but didn't go up to the same extent. And the reason for that is because we kept interest rates low for too long. If we'd have raised interest rates sooner, which other countries did, then they wouldn't have inflation would have gone up to the peak of 11%. It would have stayed much lower. And then, of course, having gone up, we then raised interest rates too late and kept them high for too long when interest rates should be going down quicker. That's unfortunately the way the Bank of England has behaved.
Right. What about reform? Are they the only party that we can depend on for rescuing us? Are the others absolutely at their wits' end? And that by-election certainly could be warning us what will happen. Two things out of this and two statements that are very significant, Sid. We have found out that Reform want to do a Trump. They want 600,000 people, mainly from Pakistan and Afghanistan, sent back immediately. Day one. That's what they want because they're illegal immigrants. And, well, that's a bold move, isn't it? They want visa bans using more liberally. And they want people generally to prove themselves coming to the country out of need, fleeing from the enemy abroad, instead of just going through the notions and some clever lefty lawyer getting them to stay forever. And there are two statements before we release you on this one that have been made over this weekend. Number one, a couple of Muslims in the Reform Party have actually done more than all the Christians in all the other parties combined. That's one statement. It's deeper than it sounds, that. Number two, again on cutting immigration and thinking of that by-election, we've got to look at the Greens and see how far they have gone within society. But it's pointed out the plan is cultural suicide, highlighting as a plan of compassion when it really isn't. So there's two statements there that you can chew on, Sid. And can we rely if Reform get in there, that they will do something? Or will it be, oh, well, yeah, we said this, but it's proving more difficult than we said?
Okay, well, the first thing that any government that comes in that is serious about immigration needs to do is to stop illegal immigration. And we know it can be done because Trump has stopped all illegal immigration into the United States. There's nobody now entering the United States illegally. Some people try and cross the border. They've had something like 6,000 people try and cross the border out of 124,000 in a year under Biden. They've had 6,000 under Trump. But those 6,000 have basically been put in detention centres and then sent back. They've not been allowed to enter the United States, which is what was happening under Biden. I mean, during the whole time of Biden, they had 5 million enter the United States illegally and are just allowed to come in. So they've stopped it. Now, the United States has got a very long land border with Mexico. And they've also got, of course, long sea borders as well. They've had people coming in into Florida. See, Britain, by contrast, is an island. We've just got a sea border. We know where the people are coming. They're coming across from France in boats. So all we've got to do is to put the Royal Navy in the channel and basically saying no boats will be allowed to enter British waters and literally just prevent them from entering British waters, stop them coming over. And you could say, oh, well, it could be endanger people's lives. Well, I'm sorry, but if you basically say you will not pass into British waters, then hopefully they will stop coming. But you see, Mamdani has told us, the new mayor of New York, that these people are coming on a Hajj. They're Muslims coming on a journey, just as Muhammad went on a journey. And Muhammad went on a journey in order to make, in theory, I don't think it actually happened, but in theory it happened, in order to make Mecca more Islamic, to make Mecca Muslim. That's the theory of what happened. Unless they're saying this is what they're doing. They're copying that plan. So they're coming over in order to make Britain and the West more Islamic. They're not fleeing anything. So we need to be clear on that. And the first thing we need to do is to stop the boats. You see, in this last week, we had one day when there were over 500 came over in small boats in one day. So, it's not just a matter of sending people back. It's a matter of stopping people coming in first. Then we need to deal with anyone who's got criminal convictions. So anyone who's got any criminal conviction needs to be sent back. We've got to leave the European Court of Human Rights because they won't give you permission to send people back as long as you're part of the European Court of Human Rights. So we've got to leave that. We've got to make it very clear that, I'm sorry, we don't accept any judgment from human rights lawyers. And this, incidentally, is why we're giving away the Chagos Islands. We're giving away the Chagos Islands because some international human rights lawyers have said you've got to give away these islands. I mean, it's just complete nonsense. These international human rights lawyers speak nonsense and talk nonsense. So we've got to leave the European Court of Human Rights. Then we'll have the power to do something. And I think the whole Rwanda scheme was a good idea, so that we can actually, people that are in detention centres, you can just tell them, I'm sorry, that you're now going to be sent to Rwanda for processing. And if everyone that applies for asylum is sent to Rwanda from processing, that will also stop people coming over. Because he'd already stopped people coming over, frankly, because they said the numbers coming over went down drastically just when the Rwanda scheme was announced, even though it was never actually implemented. And when the Labour Party stopped the Rwanda scheme, immediately the numbers coming over greatly increased. So that's another scheme that is shown to work. So we've got to use all these schemes and all these plans, in order to stop this illegal immigration attempts to make Britain more Islamic, which frankly we don't want.
You may think we're mentioning Islam throughout this broadcast, and there's more to come. But it's a question of waking up everybody to what is actually happening.
Yeah.
We're not condemning individual Muslims. We're condemning, if you wish, or realizing or making aware everybody, please look at the danger here. And that moves us on to sport, and it's going to come into sport as well. Can I say, in connection with my preamble, that I'm going to start a movement that is going to get money back for Everton supporters for the standard of football that they have to watch this year. More than the standard of football, it's their defensive mindedness I'm having a go at. And it's not just Everton. There are many other teams that display this sort of non-entertainment battle. And I suppose the basis of this is that there's such a massive difference between the Premiership and the Championship being the next league down. It's appalling. You do anything, sacrifice your grandmother to stay in the Premiership because it means so much extra money. And I'm mentioning this particularly in conjunction with the Man U match over at Everton, which was won by Man U 1-0. But the goal mouth incidences from the corners were appalling, Sid. Way before the whistle was blown for taking the corner, people were being thrown on the floor. The goalkeeper was prevented coming out from behind his goal line. And the referee was very weak. Eventually had to call the two captains together after about the 10th corner. But surely there's a way of stopping this gangsterism.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, you see defenders with their arms around attackers and hugging them, and it's like, well, it's allowed as long as the ball's not there. If the ball's there, then, you're not allowed to hug the player and prevent them from getting to the ball. But if the ball's not there, you're allowed to hug them as much as you like. I mean, it just seems nonsense. I believe FIFA did try and do something, and encourage penalties. I mean, what you basically need is penalties being given because you've obstructed an opposition player, and I think that will stamp it out. But yeah, that absolutely is very unpleasant. I totally agree with you.
There you go. Sid agrees with me on football. Things are bad state at the moment. We're going to go further on from this, actually. Again, one thinks of the demise of Manchester United. And what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. About 10 years ago, about the time of retirement, a lot of coincidences happened. The retirement of Alex Ferguson. The club went completely over to DEI, and it's still there. And it's affecting the club, the players, and everything from the women's team upwards or downwards, however you want to look at that one. It's a mess, of course. Mr. Radcliffe, Sir Jim, has suffered under this. He dared say, oh, there was an invasion, or words to that effect. Colonization was the actual word. It was in context of his speech, which was abroad, and I would defend him for what he said. But he was really referring to the DEI sentiments that are in there. And fortunately, they've got a half-decent manager at the moment. For how long, we don't know. But it's the fundamentals of the club that have changed, Sid, and it goes back to the time when DEI took over Manchester United. Is it as simple as that?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I am aware that Manchester United responded to Jim Ratcliffe saying that he thought we were being colonized by Muslims. To say, how dare you say that? How dare you? You must apologize, and we support DEI. Everybody's welcome in this club. I was certainly aware of that. To what extent it's actually influenced playing on the pitch, I honestly don't know. I don't know the club well enough for that.
It's affecting the supporters. There was a big banner rolled out this week. They were sort of supporting anything left wing, and that was on the terraces. Anyway, we move on to Sheffield Wednesday, who've gone bonked big time. And what a shame. They used to be a fantastic side, a lot of history there. And how do you rescue a club like that, Sid? You've got very few takers from the Middle East. Do you want any takers from the Middle East to pump money in there? Or do you just let the inevitable happen?
Well, the same happened to my club probably over the last 3 years or so to Reading. You see, what happened is that to both clubs is that they had an owner that put money into the club and then decided that was enough. They weren't going to put any more in. So, but you see, instead of just putting the club up for sale and saying, right, I'm putting the club up for sale, they decided that the assets of the club were probably more than they could get from selling it. So if they just basically ran the club into the ground and sold the stadium and sold everything off and sold all the players, then they would get more money than they would from selling the club. So they then decide to run down the club. But it's just like, I'm sorry, but you can't do that because you're upsetting tens of thousands of people. And I guess Sheffield Wednesday have probably got more supporters than Reading. Reading have got a lot, but thank goodness, there was large amount of protests. I mean, in Reading's case, it was sell before we die because the owner was somebody or other. And they managed, a new owner managed to, or a new bidder managed to come in, but that was a massive battle. I mean, the new bidder had literally had to take the club to court in order to be allowed to buy the club. I mean, it was, thank goodness for Rob Couig, he's American, who now owns the club, and he's come in and done a wonderful job. Really a wonderful job working within the means, not overspending, basically working with free transfer players and not giving big salaries, and but managed to bring in some very good new players, and the atmosphere in the club has completely changed. So that can happen in Sheffield Wednesday. The advantage Sheffield Wednesday got over Reading is that they've actually given this penalty. The EFL have given this penalty to Sheffield Wednesday all in one go. So they've suddenly taken 30 points off them. What happened with Reading was that they took 10 points off one season, and the next season they took 8 points off, and the next season they took another 8 points off. So season after season, they were suffering, and these reductions actually caused them to be relegated from the Championship. Fortunately, the next reduction didn't mean that they were relegated from League One, but they had to fight very hard. They had transfer bans for season after season, so they were literally only had free transfer players. Plus, they've got a very good academy. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday haven't got as good academy as Reading, but Reading got a very good academy, and they were bringing some very good young players forward, fast track to the first team. I mean, last season they had a 16-year-old player playing at right back virtually for the whole season, who's now gone abroad. But the problem can be solved, but it's going to be a battle. But I believe that Sheffield Wednesday are now in administration, so they're not going to have the same battle that Rob Couig had to force the club to sell. But they're going to. Whoever comes in is going to have deep pockets and going to have to be very committed, because it was a Championship club, but it's now a League One club.
Yeah. Right. What about the booing at Leeds this weekend? What's your take on this, Sid? This was because, of course, there were a number of Muslim players. They were playing Manchester City, and the Muslim players were awarded a break because of Ramadan, of course. They wanted drinks full of protein to keep them going. The crowd booed like mad. Were they correct?
Well, I thought that under Ramadan you weren't allowed to drink either during the hours of sunlight. But you see,
It
actually,
was the protein in the drink that they were being fed as well.
yeah, well, under Ramadan you're not supposed to eat or drink during sunlight.
No, I mean the match was stopped, especially for
Well, they're
the
not supposed to
Muslim
drink
players.
either. I mean, I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, if you can't play a football match because of your religion, then you should actually say, "I'm sorry, but I can't play because I'm not allowed to eat or drink during the hours of sunlight. So unless we have the match at night, which of course they could, they could play in any evening match, but they can't play in any daylight match. And they need to say, "I'm sorry, I can't." Now, I think it's completely wrong to stop a match, because of Ramadan. Absolutely, it's wrong.
Where we are, Sid, one thing's back to Chariots of Fire, where the choice was made not to compete in the Olympics, of course. Quite different. Okay.
Well,
Two
he
years.
did, but they didn't make special arrangements for him. They could have done. you
Yeah,
know,
that's true.
Fred Little, they could have said, "Oh yeah, okay, because you're not allowed to compete on Sunday. We'll change the schedule for you." But they didn't change the schedule, so he didn't compete in the 100 meters, but he won the 200 meters.
There you go. And lastly, some good news for our footy fans. Sky Sports and others that are making a fortune out of us have got their demise coming. And I'll tell you what's happened. We are paying in the United Kingdom £50 a month plus to watch football. And actually, we don't get the benefit of having a Saturday afternoon match, even paying that much money, which is 3 and 4 times much as any other country. In Spain, as I say, it's a third or a quarter of the price to watch all the matches. Why should it be so expensive in rip off Britain? But it is. But what happened? The Football League has come to our rescue, and they're going to start in Singapore their own version of Sky Sports, and it's going to come to Britain in about 3 or 4 years. So you can look forward to that, because rumour has it, instead of paying 50, you can get away with paying 10 to 15. That's a good move. That's some good news, Sid.
Well, they've already got, different television channels. I mean, BT Sports came in and started taking some of the football rights away. It's all a matter of bidding. And if a Singapore company comes in and they can bid more than Sky Sports, then they'll get the right to cover the football. But they've got to bid for it. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, price is the function of supply and demand. And the fact is, whether people like it or not, the demand is there. In this country, people are willing to pay the price. And it's, like you say, a very high price, but they're willing to pay the price. Old Trafford was full up. The Emirates, over 60,000 people. Old Trafford, over 70,000 people, this week watching the matches. If people are willing to pay the price, who are we to turn around and say, "Oh, the price is too high"? It's that's the way the economy works, I'm afraid.
There we go. You'd never guess you were right wing, or right of centre, should I say, but in a good Christian sense. And we have to look after our footballers. Sid, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.